nothing else ruined your life by now, JavaScript will definitely be it. Unless you're not on the internet, you've been given tons of security advice from all kinds of places. Make strong and unique passwords, use encryption, and whatever you do, do not click that link in an unsolicited message from a stranger. But what if that link clicks you?
You will die.
What I rarely see talked about outside of the professional security circles is one of the most important safeguards you can put up. Disabling JavaScript is something so simple, yet it is so often suggested with cautions as something that is only reserved to advanced users. But I don't see why we shouldn't teach noobs and normies practices that should be standard knowledge anyway. There is more than enough user-friendly tools today that are accessible to anyone without any advanced knowledge or skills. With these tools, you can keep it as simple or advanced as you want, giving yourself as much convenience as you need. JavaScript is dangerous, and it's one of the most likely ways hackers are going to get inside your phone, access your personal information, and steal your passwords. You can take all the security precautions really seriously and be vigilant about your practice, but all of that would be for nothing unless you patch the gaping hole filled with JavaScript vulnerabilities. Your security won't be any stronger than its weakest link, and for many people out there, malicious JavaScript is going to be most likely vector of infection that compromises their security and privacy. Even Tor users that rely on strong anonymity can be easily de-anonymized and tracked by JavaScript. Much of the invasive data collection and tracking from social media platforms, advertisers, and data brokers is done with JavaScript that your browser graciously runs at your discretion. And there is no other better proven method to mitigate that than to block JavaScript. So to be the most effective with this practice, you should understand what the severity of risks posed by JavaScript is to your privacy, anonymity, and security. Don't worry, you won't need to spend more time on this than the few minutes in this video, so make sure you watch it all the way through the end to not miss anything important. JavaScript is a programming language used by most websites to deliver dynamically updating content, features, and multimedia. These web applications are rendered by browsers indiscriminately, which makes it possible for them to be run on any device, platform, or operating system. For developers, JavaScript makes their job easier because they don't need to worry about developing and maintaining separate versions of their apps for iOS, Android, Windows, or Linux. It's one language for all browsers. JavaScript is what the entire Web 2.0 is built on, as 97.4% of all websites run this uniform language. In a way, JavaScript is liberating for end users as well. If you want to migrate from iPhone to Android, you don't have to worry about some websites not being compatible with a different operating system. This is in contrast with the native mobile apps that are locked inside one platform and are not available on others unless developers are willing to build them. Many websites are able to deliver some content without JavaScript, in which case they default to HTML and CSS to organize text and images in a static form that shows the same content to all users. But what JavaScript enables is dynamic content, one that is updating as needed or requested by the user. It enables plenty of new features that wouldn't be possible without it, like unique video jukeboxes that show new suggested content that is unique to your past viewing history, and thus every user's jukebox could look differently. JavaScript also enables endless scrolling on social media newsfeeds to constantly show you new content based on your past internet activity and hook you up with dopamine releases until you're so numb you can't take it anymore. I think you're starting to realize where this is going. Google Search uses JavaScript to build this filter bubble around your search records and browser history to tweak the rankings of links and content you see on the first page to keep your attention longer on Google. Obviously, Google collects your search records, but with the JavaScript, they also collect information about your scrolling action, hovering with the mouse or pausing the frame with your finger, pulling information about your device, its identifiers, screen resolution, battery life, location, browser configuration, OS version, system fonts, network time, and your unique typing style. All of this for the sake of linking your search records to your profile, your real-life identity. It is possible to use Google Search without JavaScript, and that would eliminate much of the tracking while still giving you the results. Google will still collect your search queries and what links you click on, alongside your IP address and what browser you're on, but not much else that is useful to build your profile. If you go to a news website, those are loaded with third-party JavaScript from advertisers, analytics scripts from trackers and data brokers, and social media plugins and content delivery networks. All of those third-party scripts are tracking your activity on news sites and automatically update your profile they hold in their databases. 58% of content that is rendered by your browser is delivered with integrated third-party JavaScript. You have no way of auditing what scripts are going to load on your device unless it's too late. Visiting websites with JavaScript enabled is like installing a fresh new app every time you reload the page. The point is that you would never know what JavaScript would be delivered by the server unless it's already rendered by your browser. This is a massive security loophole. In 2019, web apps were involved in 43% of data breaches, and 37% of them used or stole credentials. 92% of websites expose data to an average of 22 third parties, with personally identifiable information, credit card credentials and transactions, and medical records leaked to 10 times more third parties than intended. JavaScript is the most likely vector used to escape sandbox security of your mobile device and allow hackers to remotely take control of it. The most severe attacks use zero-day and zero-click exploit chains, which are often sold legally by malware brokers around the globe. Some of these are sold for millions of dollars, which means they are likely to be used on a high-value target such as journalists, dissidents, or company executives. But many JavaScript exploits are delivered via known vulnerabilities that have been actively used by hackers for months or even years. Many deployments of JavaScript websites rely on libraries, which are pre-written sets of scripts that allow for easier implementation by developers rather than writing everything from scratch. Many companies like Google, Yahoo, or Microsoft build their own JavaScript libraries that they rent to third parties. This means that even if you became an open source vegan, running Linux and free software on your daily driver, as soon as you hit the web, you will be caught up in the net of some, if not all, of those big tech giants. But this also means that unless you disable JavaScript by default, you're exposed to an inauditable flow of security bugs playing Russian roulette with you. An analysis of more than 133,000 websites found more than a third of them had at least one JavaScript library with a known vulnerability. And this number didn't go down by much for the top 100 Alexa websites either, with 21% of them delivering known vulnerabilities to your browser. JavaScript doesn't just deliver exploits into your device. The language on its own is a security vulnerability that can be exploited. 97% of websites are using JavaScript functions that enable injections of cross-site scripting attacks. Cross-site scripting, or XSS, is a broad category of attacks where an attacker injects a malicious script onto a legitimate website so that when you load the legitimate website, your browser will graciously run malicious JavaScript as well. These attacks are most commonly used to copy users' cookies from a website and impersonate that user to access their account or steal sensitive data. XSS attacks are easy to deploy and can target you even if you do everything right and keep your device updated at all times. Cybercrime is a multi-trillion-dollar venture. Defending against cyber attacks is so much more difficult and costly than attacking victims. The best defense strategy revolves around increasing the cost of attacks for your attackers to the point it exhausts their resources or they just lose interest in you. Disabling JavaScript is the most cost-effective method of defending yourself on the internet. No, using a VPN will not protect you from hackers. In this particular case, it will do nothing to protect yourself from being exploited by JavaScript. Even Tor users can be easily tracked and de-anonymized if they don't block scripts in the Tor browser. If you have multiple tabs or browsers open at a time, JavaScript can easily link those activities together and access your real IP address or other information. The only bulletproof method is to block all scripts by default. But doing that will cause many websites to lose some functionality. For example, you might not be able to log into your accounts, watch videos, or view other important content without JavaScript. So how to go about this? Simple, by using whitelists. Any browser today can block JavaScript, and many give you the option to re-enable scripts for specific websites. You can usually find these options under Content or Security settings. Your browser will by default remember these settings so that next time you visit a website that needs JavaScript, it won't be blocked there, but scripts on other sites will still be blocked. Generating whitelists this way is also a useful phishing protection. If you suddenly appear on a phishing website mimicking a legitimate one, your browser will block its JavaScript because it's not in your whitelist and you will know it's not a legitimate website. Some browser extensions are built for the purpose of blocking and allowing JavaScript on per-site basis. NoScript and uBlock Origin are the best two browser add-ins for this purpose. You can use NoScript to enable JavaScript temporarily or permanently for an entire website or individual scripts on that site. It gives you more granular control over your exposure to third parties, and it's up to you how much you want to tweak around. If you don't want to spend time, just enable all scripts for a site that needs it and move on. uBlock Origin functions in a similar way, only with a different interface. We can block or enable scripts with a single click, or choose which ones to allow or block based on their hostname. Brave browser, with their built-in Shield extension, is probably the most convenient option for most users. You can block scripts by default in the Shield settings and then re-enable scripts permanently or temporarily on every individual site. Brave Shield interface is probably the most user-friendly one, so if you are looking for a fast and easy solution, this might be the best place to start. Cyberspace is massively lagging behind in security. Cyber attacks can come from anywhere in the world, way outside of the jurisdiction of your local police. Cybercrime and warfare are rapidly escalating, and victims are often left on their own. There's no reason not to take security steps that don't cost you anything. You're not just protecting yourself, but also the people around you that might otherwise be exposed to hackers through the gaps introduced by their friends and contact. Add blocking JavaScript at the top of your list in your cybersecurity hygiene. And because all of this educational information comes for free and might potentially save you from some future headaches, feel free to support the channel with an anonymous Monero donation or by becoming a patron. There's a 90% chance that all of your Monero donations will be lost in a boating accident. Nonetheless, this is the easiest, fastest, and cheapest way for you to support this channel, other than watching my videos till the end and engaging in engagement for the sake of engagement.